Well, maybe you ask yourself how I came to Germany or to holography, and then the story is quite simple. I'm born from Yugoslavia. I'm Slovene, and I wanted to study the theory and history of photography because I was photographer during my my time at the high school. So I learned by myself and with the help of my father the photography, but it was not enough for me. I wanted to know more about holography of photography, and therefore, by accident, we found these studies in Osnabrück, which was called Medienwissenschaft, media sciences. In that time, it was something very unique. Because there was normally, if you would study this, you would study publicistic or journalism, or maybe Germanistic, German studies, but never ever you would go for media sciences. And this was, I guess, this was the first university where you were able to study Medienwissenschaft, and part of this Medienwissenschaft, the media sciences, was photography, and this was my main focus. The interesting thing was that, but the Medienwissenschaft has opened us as well other fields of thinking on media, not only on photography. We had a super professor, Rainer Weißenborn, who brought us a lot of theory of this medium, but as well like people like Ingo Petzke, who brought to Osnabrück the idea to understand the experimental movies or the movement of experimental films, because there was a scene, there was a community of people who were working on this, but they were not taking so serious. This was a kind of maybe some avant-garde, but it was a kind of very edgy. So, and he said, no. Let's take a look on this. Let's go into the history of the montage of the non-depicting movies, like abstract movies in the between the First and Second World War and this and that. And the interesting thing was, by doing this, you establish a new path of serious reflection of this medium, and out of his idea came the experimental film workshop in Osnabrück, and the first was done in 1981. It is the same time when the Ars Electronica in Linz was established. It is far before the Zentrum für Kunst- und Medientechnologie, ZKM, in Karlsruhe was established. So that means it was, and the students and him, Ingo Petzke with the students, like Heiko Daxel, like Ilka Lauchstedt, like Marianne Lohmann, Jochen Kolterwey. These were all the students who were so focused on these experimental movements that they were able to establish a festival in Osnabrück. And this was as well interesting for the people, not only that all the scene, this edgy scene of the makers, received a platform where they were somehow public. They received a public awareness. This was one point, and the second point is that the media makers, like TV and movies, they found a kind of human resources in these avant-garde and very creative people, in order to bring them into the main business. The early beginnings of the holography laboratory of Osnabrück, they were, if you have nothing to lose, you can do whatever you want. And Peter Seetz, he wrote on his master thesis on holography. So, and he knew the theory of holography. And I come from photography, so I know everything how you can work in the black chamber to develop and fix the photographs. So, and the technique in holography is in the wet chamber is the same as black and white photography. So he said to me, "Hey, you are a photographer, you know how to make it. Why don't you try to learn the first part, how to work with the laser, because the second part you already know." And well, you know, I was young. I said, "Yeah, why not? Sure, this is a good idea." So, and then and the funny thing was that we had at the University of Osnabrück, there was a professor who tried to develop holographic storage method in crystals, so it as a kind of holographic, let's say, chip. It was not holographic chip, but it was in this direction: how to store information by the means of holography, of holographic recording method. Let's say it so. So, and then we knew that, and so in that time somehow everything was more easier. And then I went to university and asked them, "It is possible that I try to make some holograms in your laboratory, small ones?" I said, "Hey, do you have an idea how to make it?" I said, "Well, I have some books, you know, and I know they wrote how to make it, and I understand. But my problem is that they have no laser so far, because we are about to buy it. But we have to firstly we have to get it, and we have to develop our own laboratory. But you have it already." And then I said, "Okay, I can give you a key for Saturday and Sunday. So, and you bring me key back, and when you are finished." So, you know, and then I came to university. I went to university, and I was able to work in their holographic laboratory. And for them, it was fine. It was okay. Well, it was not as easy as I thought, because even in the books like this, even if they say it is a holographic handbook, some of the tricks are not written. So therefore, it needed more time to learn it, but we did it with the help of the others, and to observe it, and to read another literature, and so on and so forth. So this was one point. So how to learn the making of holograms. The second thing is, I always said the holography is high tech by means of handicraft. That means the recordings are not automatically, they're done automatically as you would think. It is not, even if you use a camera in these days, it was kind of automatic. It was Nikon, Olympus, or the other cameras, or Hasselblad. You know, they were standardized, and in holography nothing was standardized. You know, there was recording material which was done by Agfa. Mostly I worked on Agfa, but it was. But the way how you record it was always try and error method. So that means you have to check it by try and error. But the most challenging situation was that we are dealing on the level of the stability level of the fourth wavelength. That means our table where we did recordings was about 7 tons. So, and it was in a cellar a bit outside of the city, so not to have all these vibrations of the city. And sometimes we did recordings during the night, because it was there was no tram or railway or something like this. Even it was far away, it could disturb us. Then we had concrete blocks on a sand, and on the concrete blocks there was a huge steel plate. And because we needed steel plate, because all the mounting elements for the lenses and spatial filters and so on and so forth, they were done. They were mounted by magnets. so to be very stable. So, and therefore we needed this. And so it was, the crazy thing is, we did a self-construction and didn't know whether once we have this table of 7 tons, this will work or not. And thanks God, it worked. In that times, there were 2 main paths of holography. One path was the question how precise holography can depict the reality, not only to reproduce the reality, but as well a kind of make a simulation of the reality. And this was in the beginning of the 80s, in the middle of the 80s. I started in 85. In that time, there was no computer animation. There was only computer graphics like Herbert V. Franke or Edward Zajec. This was a kind of abstract graphics done by the computer plotter. And so the holography became, to say, the first medium which was not analog, but it was digital, because the interference pattern is a kind of digital pattern. It is not done by camera obscura. And therefore, there was a super hype of holography because it was the first technique where a new way of depicting the reality can be done and can be seen. Nevertheless, there was more theory of this simulacrum of reality, like from Jean Baudrillard, who said in, I think, 1981, that hologram is a simulation of the reality. And even in the literature, in novels of Gibson, there was the idea how the holography can overcome the reality and became not a second reality, but the reality. The reality. And the funny thing is that there was one part which tried to make this mix between the virtual image of holography and the real image of the world. And there was a second part which went more in the direction that holography is a kind of light sculpture. And this was even the theory of Peter Seitz, and he found some artists which worked on this, like Sally Weber or Dieter Jung, which were going in this direction. For me, personally, this was interesting, but nevertheless, I was looking as well for something third, which was a question: what is the inherent media aesthetics in the holography? So to go into the holography and to see, is there something in this technology which can be digested and worked out as a new aesthetics. So, and I worked on this in this field. And the funny thing is that holography is a real light sculpture. So that means it is a real it is in space. It is a picture in space. And this picture in space can be only observed if you, as an observer, are active during the observation of the holography. That means this very static observing of the pictures, as we know from the old times, let's say it so, but even from the photography, it is different. And even if you go to the cinema, you sit in your seat, and the picture moves around you, but you are sitting inactively in the seat during the observation of the movie. In holography, we need a kind of activated observer. And this activated observer means as well that you are dealing between the picture and the sculpture. And this is interesting because the holography has allowed us that the people were somehow dancing in front of the holograms or moving in front of the holograms. I can imagine if there would be historical recordings how the people have observed the holograms, this could be a quite funny historical document. I try to explain how this recording process occurs. It is quite complicated because it is uncommon. Our meaning of depicting the reality is always led by the idea of camera obscura, and we understand this quite well. And in holography, you are in a dark room which has this super heavy table, and on the table there is a laser, and you would think that the laser scans an object. No, you use a lens to expand the laser light in the dimensions of your recording plate. That means if you have the recording plate of 30 by 40 centimeters, you have to expand the laser light on this with a super good lens to this 30 by 40 centimeters wide. So that means this is one point. And the second point is you have to split the laser light by the so-called, normally it is a prism, and you split the light in two beams, and then one beam is then expanded and illuminates the objects, and the other illuminates directly your recording plate. If you can imagine this, you understand immediately that we cannot do a hologram without having an object. That means this was a second challenge. All the objects we can make a hologram out of it have to be very stable. If you have, for example, a paper, the paper moves. And where the paper moves, there is a kind of information hole. That means you would not see the paper, you would just see a black square. And because I was looking for this inherent media aesthetics of holograms, I did a series of the objects which moved during the exposure time. So I have received spatial shadows, which is a crazy thing. Normally shadow is always two-dimensional, yeah. But I received spatial shadows, and I did and for example, I used a plant which is called papyrus, and this papyrus is, because it's so thin, it moves always a bit. So when I did the recording, I put it. My backdrop was white and stable, so that I had a stable background. And then I recorded the papyrus, which was information hole, and this information hole at the end was a kind of shadow holograms. Even I recorded myself as well, and because I moved during the exposure time, so I became a shadow of myself during as a hologram. There is a funny situation with holography, because the holography is not a technique which is nowadays done, it's over, but it is as well a kind of concept. It is a term, or let's say role model. If you say, I will make a holographic screen, doesn't mean that I will make a hologram which is in the form of the screen, but that this screen is able to depict something in a very precise and very holistic way. That means, also, if you nowadays we have pictures of people which are projected to the foils, and they say these are holograms of the people. We know that in the real term, in the scientific term, this is not holography, but the way that a person appears as would be in the air, it is something holography-like. That means holography never ever has realized the idea to depict their reality 100%, but has brought in our society as a term the holography as a symbol how to make something very precisely and very exactly. This is interesting because there are not so many visual techniques which became a kind of role model for other techniques. As I've mentioned before, we have during the reception or perception process of holograms, we have this activated observer. And I was normally, you have a hologram, it's illuminated by the light, and you have to move in front of the hologram in order to see all this spatial situation in the hologram. And I was thinking, what would it be if the observer by him or herself would have a candle or the bulb and illuminate the hologram by him or herself? So that means that you are the observer and the illuminator in one person. So, and I did an installation which was called Tiger's Eyes in 1988 during the Media Art Festival in Osnabrück in a cellar. So, and I installed the holograms, and the people who came into this cellar, they received the torches or the candles and said, okay, you have to now define the right way to illuminate the hologram, and during the illumination of the hologram, you will be a kind of actively technician and as well an actively observer. The holography itself, it combines sure the history of perception of the media as movie, TV, in that time first interactive discs by Lynn Hirschman, for example. But it is, even if there is a kind of unconsciousness of the experience of the media, and it is somehow summarized in the holography, it is not seen as a kind of as a kind of construction of the reality. So maybe this was as well this fascination of holography, that it was a kind of smooth and so smart and so soft, even sometimes even too soft, that when you have all this, when you have the all constructed realities in the other media, here the reality is somehow fluid. And this was as well the critics of the holography, that they said, well, it is not as hard as the other media, it is not sharp as the other media. No, it was, we could say it was even a postmodern way how to be connected to reality and how to be connected to the technology. So it was maybe a new form of montage, or of the new form of the of synthesis of our way of recording the reality. Well, you know, holography as it is, the holography as I have explained it now in this movie, this is done, it's history. And the question is, why something which was such a hype in the 80s, in the beginning of the 90s, why it is gone? It is, well, the first thing is for sure that the question of this handicraft work limited the outcome, limited the motives, limited as well the costs, or the costs were too high on one point. On another point, there was an idea of Stephen Benton. I mentioned him before, the inventor inventor of the rainbow holography. He was head in the media lab at Cambridge in the USA. He was the head of the spatial media group. And he was spatial media department or group, something like this. But his idea was not only to bring holography further, but to find a way how to make a computer-generated hologram. That means the pattern, the interference pattern, which is the information recording of holography, theoretically can be done as well by means of computer. And in the cellar of the media lab, there was a thinking machine. It was in that days the most advanced computer worldwide by IBM. And with the help of this thinking machine, it could be possible that you generate, that you transform the reality into the digital pattern, which then can be illuminated and can appear as a hologram. In theory, this was possible, but in practice, it was a huge. It was a question of the human resources, and it was a question of money. It was a question of the capital, who can invest in this, or who wanna invest in this. Because we have to know, parallel to this, there was upcoming visual development by means of computer, and everyone knows Jaron Lanier with his term of virtual reality. This was in the 80s as well, and when he started with his company YPR Research and did his goggles, where in that times as well very easy done, virtual reality was presented to the public, then all the money went into this research, and there was a stronger path investing into the computer development as a basis of the virtual visual appearance than to the holography. And this is the main reason why holography was then not able to deal with the human resources and with the money to develop this computer-generated computer pattern. And this was then the end. This is a picture of the installation Tiger's Eyes, and you see the hologram. This is my self-portrait as a shadow, and you see here the observer who has a torch in his hand, and he has to, with a torch, he has to illuminate the hologram in order to see the hologram. And this was done in 1988, I guess, at the European Media Art Festival in Osnabrück. So, and then the idea how to figure out the media aesthetics, this was then done further. I've put as a light source the white snow of the monitors. So, and I illuminated the holographic optical element with a monitor. Firstly, with nothing on. It was just a white snow, and I call this HOE-TV, H-O-E-TV. And then next step was, this was done for the Expo in Hanover. There was a video animation of the logo, and this video animation was a light source of the hologram. So it was a kind of doubling the media, or bringing two media together on a very let's say radical way. So then, as holograms are as well large-scale optical lenses, we did an installation with a dancer from Switzerland, and I used holograms as a large lenses to double her body. And this was a performance in Hanover in Foro Artistico, where she danced in the space, and then when she came behind the hologram, you see her 3 times. This was done as well in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we have used an abandoned space, put as well holograms inside, and the same dancer, she was dancing in front of the holograms, and the holograms were illuminated by the light coming in from the natural light sources. Here you see this the same. There is a switch of her body, so it is a kind of maybe neo-cubism. Yeah. So this is an installation. I did it in Ingolstadt, and the same installation I did in Zagreb in, I guess, 1993 during the Mediascape, where we did a very simple computer graphics which illuminated then the holograms. Bild und Körper. U Cyrillici. We have played, with all this, with this, let's say, systems. We always want to put a question mark on the system, and this is German language, but Russian, Serbian, Greek, Bulgarian alphabet. So that means Bild und Körper. Bild und Körper is picture and body. But if you see this, you always have a feeling this is something Russian. No, it's not Russian. But I just wanted to see here, for example, we published here one of the first articles from Wilhelm Flusser when he came back from South America to Germany. He called us and said, "Okay, can you publish this?" And said, "Yes, okay, we can do it." And then we as well published the article by Jean Baudrillard on holograms. This was translated by a friend of us who was able to make it, and this was a kind of a starting point, working with photography on more active way, because it was totally unknown. This was published in year 1983, and we established our laboratory, as I said, in 1985. Okay, these are our publications we did during our studies. The number 0, 1 on photography, double-ted number 2. Number 3 is Bild und Körper, which is written in the Cyrillic alphabet, so you think it is written in the Russian or Serbian or Greek language. No, it is written in the German language, but using an other alphabet, not the Latin one, but the Cyrillica. So, and this is called Bild und Körper, and because it was thicker, we said it is not only number 3, but it's number 3.5. So, and if you say then 3.5 plus 1 is 4.5, or you can say as well half 5. So that means our last publication has the number half 5, which occurred some problems with the librarians, because they didn't know where's the number 4. They call us and said, oh, where's number 4? I said, no, we don't have number 4, because number 4 is in between the number 3.5 and half 5. So, and the name of Wippecker Raifan is quite simple. This is Vitor, Peter, Eckhard, Bernd, Rainer, Stefan. And we did as well a picture of Wippecker Raifan. This is a multi-exposure of the people. So it is quite funny.